Okay, today is November 8th, 2022. Sounds so weird. It's a meeting of the Norwalk Inland Wetland Agency and Conservation Commission. And let's have a roll call, please.
Steve Clocky,
I'm here.
Cheryl Brown,
Here.
Ed Holinka,
Yeah, here.
and Matt Pence.
Here.
Brilliant.
I believe that is it for tonight.
So be it. Our mission statement, I'm going to go off the cuff tonight and say that we are all volunteers. We are here to uphold the state statutes that require every town to have a inland wetland agency. And yeah, we're not here to make anybody's lives more difficult. We're just here to implement the rules and do it as fairly as possible. Do we have anybody here who would like to make any comments from the public? Before, not related to any properties that we're discussing today and or the open public hearing.
Right. So if any of the attendees that are watching the meeting, if you'd like to provide public comment, you can use the raise your hand feature in Zoom. And as the chairman noted, you cannot speak on any pending applications or anything, any inland wetland specific cases. But if you have any general comments, raise your hand. I don't see any takers, Steve.
Okay, moving on to receipt and discussion. I don't think we have anything new tonight.
We do not.
Lovely. Then moving on to discussion and or decision for S22-610 13 Valley Road, removal of invasive species and replanting with native in and adjacent to a wetland and water course. Land Tech folks are here or no?
They are. I believe Tom Ryder from Land Tech is here. And so this application was received 2 meetings ago. You had discussion at that receipt, and then you had more discussion at your last meeting on October 25th. If I remember right, since the last, no, it was immediately prior to the last meeting, the applicant had provided an updated narrative and answered some of the questions that some of the members had asked of him. And it seemed like at the last meeting there was movement towards consensus to approve the application. And so I did include a draft resolution with conditions to approve. It is not your decision deadline, so you don't have to make one tonight, but you can. That's it for me.
Okay, do any commissioners have any additional questions for the applicant? I was late to come. I was late to this this issue, and I'm still not 100% like convinced that herbicide is the way to go, even though no one has told me distinctly that it's not the way to go. It still makes me feel a little queasy, and it looks like the memorandum is written. The invasive plants would either be cut / mowed, comma, treated with herbicide, comma, or both. Does anybody have any interest in supporting an approach that prioritizes cutting and mowing and manual means over herbicide? Or just sorry?
I support that if it's feasible.
Right, if it's feasible.
Oh, I'm sorry. The very end of what you said broke up a little bit.
Oh, sorry. I'm reading from the first paragraph of the memo that Alexis drafted November 3rd, it looks like, that I think we got an email. And it's just, yeah, rather than putting all the options on a level playing field, I would be more comfortable prioritizing a non-chemical approach first, and keeping the herbicide as a backup, basically, after a honest attempt has been made to do it without the herbicide. I mean, Tom, you can call us nuts if you want.
I will just add, I'll let Tom speak, but the state does regulate pesticide application, and the application of pesticides within a wetland or within a water course is a requires a different applicator's license, and requires that they file for a permit from the state to apply aquatic
I can
herbicides.
expand on that if you'd like, but yes.
That'd be great.
Yeah, there's two different, the state regulates herbicide use in two different ways. One is for areas with standing water, and then one with areas without standing water. The vast majority of this area would be without standing water, and they would have one permit for that. And then in areas that, if needed, in this particular case, if there was standing water and they would have to go apply, then they would have to be, apply for a separate permit. So the reason is because the DEP regulates, identifies there's two different resources and two different needs and two different precautions, and therefore they regulate them differently. And all the companies I have used treat that very seriously. And as I mentioned earlier, the last meeting, is that the science and the technology and the procedures have been fine-tuned greatly. And so I'm comfortable with it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be promoting it. Another thing is when I mentioned it was either going to be cut, herbicide, or both, that was on a per species basis. So there would be some species that would need to be cut first and then sprayed. There were some other species that could just be cut and that thing. So when I referred to need to be cut, sprayed, or both, it was on a per species basis. It wasn't a blanket statement.
Got it. Okay, so if I can put together what both Alexis and Tom have said, is that the state regulates this, and I mean, like deep even is like, yeah, sometimes you just got to use herbicides. Is that basically what I'm understanding?
Yes.
Okay. Now the whole standing water thing, I think there's a little bit of disagreement on that. Last time, I believe one of the commissioners took some pictures and saw that there's quite a bit of standing water that seemed to be more than what was mentioned in the original application. So like, when do you decide whether the space has standing water or not? Is it the day you go and look at it? Is the day you apply the herbicide to it? Is it the possibility that it could collect standing water? Like, how do you define that?
Well, first of all, there was no disagreement. I had actually was enthusiastic about her bringing the photographs because it actually showed what I was expecting to see.
Okay.
I had been there during wet conditions, but like I said, I was there during dry conditions, and I can see, certain soil conditions and certain root zones acting certain ways, and I expected it to float that way, and she was able to take the photograph. So I just thanked her for presenting that. So I don't think there's any disagreement on that.
Okay.
Second one is, yeah, if the DEP, if the applicator has to go into and, put waders on in order to spray, then that would be, that's how it was. Actually, I've asked that question, and that's how it was addressed to me. So if they have to put, wet boots on and wet waders on to go in and spray, then it's a certain application. If they don't, then it's a dry, there's no standing water that day, then they don't. So that's basically how I understand it.
Okay. So it's not even a paperwork process, it's just on the fly. They make that decision. They're following either option anyway, regardless of what they're doing on that particular day.
It doesn't matter because they have to follow the rules based on the state. So even though I don't fully understand it, or you may not fully understand it, they do, and they have to follow the rules.
Okay, sorry, I'm done raking you over the coals. I wanted to make sure I was 100% on
That's why I'm here.
On board for that. So, all right, any other commissioners have anything they want to add? Okay, are you guys up for making a motion to approve the memo with, can we make an edit on the fly, or can we just ask Alexis to prioritize or minimizing the use of herbicide only as necessary, or do we even need to bother?
You can certainly make that modification if you want to add some kind of language, like what you just said, that I mean, that's a tough thing to quantify, like as the person that sends inspectors out to judge compliance or not. How to judge whether someone's made a good try or not is a difficult thing, but the commission has made permit condition language like that in the past, and we deal with it as best we can.
All right, so I guess, so what it sounds like, and I'm not trying to push anybody in particular direction, but maybe it sounds like unless there's an urgency here that we're trying to address, maybe we give Alexis the opportunity to wordsmith the memo a little bit with that intent, and then ideally be able to get it through next time in 2 weeks. 22nd or not? No, we don't have anything the 22nd. Okay, now is it getting to be too late in the year? Is it just December 8th, I think, is our next
Your
meeting?
next meeting is December 13th, I think.
Oh, 13th, okay. Anybody?
Do we need to do that? I mean, can we just tee up a motion with modification of the language right now?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I was thinking easy. Yeah, if you want to go for it, or I can try.
I would be fine with that. I mean, I think what you mentioned before, use your best effort and only use, herbicides when necessary. As long as we know that's the intent, that's the best we can do, and the rest is kind of in Alexis's hands, our team.
Okay. So maybe, how about this then? I'm gonna throw out a motion to approve the memo with a very slight edit. It would be, Alexis, in the middle of the first paragraph, after the invasive plant sentence, add a sentence that says herbicide shall be used only after non-chemical means have been deemed ineffective.
And I'm sorry, where that is a condition?
Well, I was gonna have
Or-
you put it just like in the, oh yeah, I'm sorry, it should be down below, shouldn't it? In the draft resolution. No, I don't see any other place for it to go. Because I think the use of herbicide is just in the application. It's not anywhere in the memo other than that first paragraph.
Okay, yeah, so the first that's the memo as opposed to the draft
Resolution.
resolution that you're considering adopting.
Okay, so I can
So
add
then-
just maybe number 7.
Or maybe, how about you add a whereas to the beginning of your resolution that says something to the effect of what you just said?
Okay,
that,
okay, so
that-
after the first whereas, say, add another whereas. Herbicides are to be used according to DEP standards only when non-chemical means have proven to be ineffective or whatever, are deemed ineffective. It's still, there's no teeth to that, but I just kind of want something.
Okay. Okay,
All right, so then we need a second, I guess.
yes.
Yep, I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? Nope. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And there can be no abstentions, so I guess we pass. Approve, whatever the right word is.
Thank you all. Have a
Yep.
good night.
Thanks, Mr. Ryder.
Good night, Tom.
Good night.
Okay, moving on then to S22-611, 71 Crooked Trail. Construction of a new single-family residence adjacent to a wetland.
Oh, hold on one second. Let me just move the applicant over.
And it looks like we have some revised drawings too.
Yeah, so the, this application was received at the last meeting. At that meeting, there was directives from the commission for staff to draft a possible resolution to approve with conditions. And of course, that was just at the receipt of the application, so staff had not really had a chance to thoroughly look through the application in advance of the meeting. And I reached out to the applicant and let him know some of the concerns that are in the memorandum part of my memo. And then proceeded to draft some potential resolutions for you to use if you still want to make a decision this evening. The first draft resolution in the memo includes some modifications to the initially submitted plan. The first resolution makes modifications to the initially submitted plan. The second resolution would approve the initially submitted plan. Then yesterday afternoon, the applicant provided revised plans, I believe depicting all of the things that we had, that I had discussed in the memo. However, I've not had a chance to thoroughly go through those submitted revised drawings or to alter any draft resolutions for approval. That said, the applicant representative, well, the applicant and their applicant's representatives are here. And so maybe you'd like them to discuss what's in the revised plans. And then after you hear that, you can decide, what you want to do as far as timing, if you want it to kick it back to staff to come up with a draft resolution that more accurately reflects the most recent plans, or if you want to stick to either of the resolutions that are in the memo. With that, good evening, applicant.
Good evening. I'm Wilder Gleason. I represent the applicant Dale Meck with Bill Pollock, who's our landscape architect. And we submitted yesterday a revised plan that I think accomplishes all of the suggestions Alexis had made. We had a lawn path, which is now just a path. It's not going to be lawn. We had the limit of disturbance at the wetlands, and Bill has revised the silt fencing so it'll be 6 feet away from the wetlands. And I think those were the major concerns. Bill, do you want to review the plans with everyone? And I'll just mute and you can then show them.
Sure. Thanks, Wilder. Bill Pollock, landscape architect. I will just share my screen for just a quick moment. And I'm going to zoom in, excuse me, to the site plan. So you can see the residence there in the center. As Wilder noted, we moved the silt fence, which is shown now 6 feet away from the wetland line. Therefore, the limit of disturbance represents that as well. We had bouldered demarcation originally right at the wetland line, so those have shifted up as well to be about 6 feet away. We removed the lawn path that went around the side of the wetlands here. It's perfectly walkable, so it'll just be a path as is. And the only other change that we did was I'm just going to scroll up to the top, is we added 2 street trees because we are removing 2 trees within the right of way. So on the landscape plan, it shows 2 new street trees, which are native Tupelo plantings that we are proposing. That is all of the changes that we've made to the plans.
And what's the date of those plans?
Yesterday, November 7th.
November 7th. Was it? Okay. All right. Does anybody have any questions about any of that? I'm just looking at Alexis's draft resolution to approve as proposed. And we will also obviously have to change some dates there. I mean, is it a rush? Is it gonna hold you guys up if we wait until December 13th to approve this? And by doing that, we would give Alexis a chance to fully review the plans that were submitted yesterday and then draft a new resolution.
We could live with the delay, but we'd like to, there is a neighbor who apparently may be trying to secure a petition to take this to a public hearing, and we'd like to close this if possible today. Because I don't believe that's happened yet, has it, Alexis?
No, I did receive, hold on a second. I have been emailing with the neighbor, and this was an email at 4:44 this afternoon. Hi Alexis, as always, thank you so much for all the answers. Based on that, the information that I've gathered from you and Attorney Gleason, I will not be requesting the public hearing.
That's very comforting. Thank you. We have spent a fair amount of time trying to address her questions and concerns.
Okay, so if it's amenable to the applicant to give staff time to fully vet the drawings and update a proposed resolution or draft resolution, that's what I would suggest we do.
And
Yes.
commissioners, did you have any issues or anything with, I don't know, did I cover any of your concerns or anything within that memo?
It seemed good to me.
Okay.
And the new plans look good too.
Wasn't at the last meeting, so I'll defer to you guys. Sounds like holds together to you, Alexis, and Commissioner Brown, and everyone else is okay. Then I got faith in you guys.
Ed, you were there. Do you have any thoughts? I don't see you, so I'm gonna assume that's a no.
Yeah, it looks a lot better than it did before. So yeah, I'm good with it.
Okay.
Okay,
All right,
so
well then, sorry.
no, I was just gonna say, so I will revise the potential draft resolution to reflect the new plans and send you out a new memo in advance of your December 13th meeting.
Great. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm gonna move to edit the agenda to move the public hearing or move items 8, 9, and 10 if we get to them ahead of the public hearing at 7 o'clock. Can I get a second?
We need to not
Oh,
move.
wait.
Right, not 8.
I'm sorry. Oh, right. Yes, right. Not 8, just 9 and 10 then.
9, 10,
I
11.
second that.
Ms. Brown seconds. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thanks, Cheryl. Okay, S21-568, 4 half-mile road. Release of bond for the correction action, landscaping, and debris removal in and adjacent to a wetland and watercourse.
All right, so this was a corrective action application for removal of debris within a wetland and watercourse, and it involves some corrective landscaping adjacent to the edge of the wetland. They also have a minor permit or an administrative permit for construction of a rear addition off the existing residence with a 40-foot setback. When inspection staff went out earlier this week, they found that 12 shrubs were required. 3 out of the 9 of the 12 shrubs looked vigorous and healthy. 3 looked like they were maybe on their way out. And then additionally, I had contacted the permittee, not regarding the shrubs directly, but that the work related to the addition seemed to be encroaching within the 40-foot limit of disturbance that was part of that minor permit, and informed them to remove the machinery and construction debris. And then a minute earlier today at 12:32, the permittee did send me an email with some photos that they had taken earlier today, and I can try to share those. Let's see. Let's see if I can do this out. So this is the email from the committee. Zoom. Is that visible? Kind of. So this is the row of shrubs. This is the rear of the house. The wetland is off to the left. The machinery, I should have started off with photos that the inspector took, but when the inspectors came out, there was a van. I think it was actually this vehicle parked right next to the shrubs, and some other heavy machinery that was and construction related debris next to the shrubs. And they have now moved all of that material out, with the remainder, with the exception of there is a stockpile. We thought it was grass clippings, but it is apparently topsoil that's being stored there and has been seeded with some tall grass. So these are the photographs from the permittee, and the machinery has been moved a bit further, or at least 40 feet from the wetland. So that's kind of what it looks like now in the rear yard. So that's kind of the story there. I can show you the before photos if you want.
How do you feel about the 3 shrubs that are struggling?
So it's kind of hard to tell with the leaves. So what we look for is, I know that in the past, the commission had always looked for at least a 80% survival rate for plants. So this is right at 75. You look at other things like general compliance with the plan, and whether the intent of the buffer was implemented. It's a little hard to tell. Like, for example, because of the backyard is all dug up from the rear addition and the construction activities, we often look to make sure that the buffer area is not mowed, and the lawn area looks different. So you'd have a lawn area, and then you'd have potentially grasses, but they would look different within the buffer. It's a little hard to tell that currently with this. So it's really kind of up to you. They did not go, though they went within 40 feet of the wetland line with their minor permit activities. They didn't cross the buffer, or they, just came right up to the buffer, but didn't cross.
Feel about the pile of topsoil? Does that pose any risk to the area?
It should have a silt fence between it and the wetland. And then I will definitely need to talk to the property owners regarding the area where it will be spread and when. I'm presuming that it's going to be spread over all these bare and compacted soil areas.
Get an answer on that before we decide on releasing this bond?
You can wait for one.
Yeah, I'm game for kicking this can.
Yeah, I mean, the shrubs, I don't know. I mean, at first it's, 25% of the shrubs aren't there, right? But I guess there's some threshold for it. So, but I mean, I think there's some other issues with the area. So to me, yeah, let's get a little bit more clarification and make sure that they're a little bit more in compliance on this area.
Okay, in the past, you've never had the permittees talk to you for any bond releases, so it's just a staff and photograph discussion. The property owner is in attendance and has raised her hand. It's up to you if you want to allow her to speak tonight, or you can make a resolution to review it again at your next meeting. It's up to you.
I'm game for it as long as we're not going to get chewed out.
As long as it's okay, I agree.
I'm sorry, Matt, I couldn't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have no objection if they want to speak, as long as that's okay.
Yeah, it's really up to the four of you represent the commission at the moment, so. Hold on a second. Ms. Alfano, you should have the ability to speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I just wanted to address the pile up topsoil. That just from, we had to relocate our septic. So that's just some topsoil that we're waiting to spread where that yellow truck is, which is where the leaching fields are to the right of it. That we're just on a tight timeline because the addition is for my parents, and they need to move in by the 30th because their house is being closed on, and so they're just concentrating on the inside right now. But that's where that pile of topsoil, we did not seed it. It just whatever grew on the topsoil since they dug up the soil to move the leaching fields in the septic.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there any chance that that work would be done before December 13th, so we can all feel good about that buffer?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, we're trying to have it moved before the ground freezes. So it most likely towards the end of this month, it'll get moved.
Well, on that note, if you're able to throw 3 more shrubs in the ground, I guess, Alexis, there is a time period though that we would need, that we typically require the plants to show that they survived, right?
That's up to you. So again, the condition of approval for the corrective action stated the installation of 12 shrubs, and then you held the bond for 2 full growing seasons. You don't have to, it's up to you. So you can let the permittee know that you'd like 3 additional shrubs to have the 12 shrubs, but then release it upon implementation. You can do whatever you want.
I would
Does that
just
make sense?
note, sorry, I would just note the shrubs aren't dead. I checked the roots on the shrubs. They're kind of just burnt on the top. You know, I'm sure you know this, there was a severe drought and we're still in a very dry
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 conditions.
season, dry conditions, and there
Yeah.
was the executive order not to water. So I've been using the water from my dehumidifier to water the shrubs. So I wouldn't consider them dead yet. The roots are definitely still alive. It just, they're burnt on the top.
New plantings are exempt from the water restrictions, by the way. So you can water them.
Good to know.
Sorry. I don't know. I'm on the fence here. I can be persuaded either way, guys.
Yeah, I'm on the fence as well. I guess it would be good to see that topsoil moved, but the shrubs are the shrubs. And
When
Well, I
it-
will go, sorry, go ahead.
When it comes to the plantings, I mean, I see a couple of options. We could hold on to the bond and see what happens in the spring and if the plants come back. Or another option would be replace the 3 shrubs and, maybe at that point, we call everything good and, cross our fingers that the last 3 survive and just, kind of, basically release the bond at that point. Those are 2 options that I see as possibly viable.
Ed, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I would like to see the 3 shrubs in there, or, at least wait until spring to see what happens before releasing the bond.
Okay, so I don't think we're supposed to be doing a whole lot of back and forth with the applicant right now, but so it sounds like there's a consensus on, there's a couple of ways that we're comfortable moving forward. So do you have any additional questions for us?
Sorry, I just removed her. Let me allow her to
Okay.
talk again.
Oh, sorry.
I thought you guys were moving towards a resolution.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to plant them right before going into winter. So I guess wait for the spring.
I mean, whatever you're most comfortable with. So, so that means that we'd be rejecting the request for the bond release until we can see what happens in the spring. And then you may also have, ideally, your lawn could be restored at that point. We could also see that, it doesn't go beyond the line that was drawn in the application. That's the most prudent as far as we're concerned. I think that I don't know. It's the most objective. That's fair considering the way we have either approved or rejected other requests for bond releases. If you can handle that.
Okay, so it sounds like the bond will be held until the spring, when hopefully 1 or 2 or 3 of the shrubs that are currently struggling hopefully show some more renewed vigor. And then just for the permittee, the bond is held separate then, so that it separates any activities from getting a conservation sign off for your certificate of occupancy. So you can contact my office and we'll come up with a solution to tighten up your sedimentation erosion controls for spreading the topsoil. And then as long as that 40-foot no disturbance area is kept undisturbed, we can sign off on that minor permit for the addition.
Okay,
Okay,
I hope she heard that.
I think so.
All right, so then I guess we're moving on in our agenda. All right. S20-560, 15 Adams Lane, release of bond for the correction action, revegetation in and adjacent to a wetland and water course.
So this was another corrective action application Just going to find the inspector's email. A second, I accidentally closed it. Let's see. Okay, this corrective action planting plan required 64 shrubs and 8 shade trees within a slope leading down to a wetland watercourse. All of the plants for the most part looked good. All but one of the 8 shade trees are thriving. And then there were, well, she located at least 40 of the 64 shrubs, but then when we looked at the photographs, she realized that some of the larger shrubs in the back were actually more recently planted. She thought that those were native plants, which is always a good sign. The only issue with this one is that there were some wood chip piles that had been placed kind of throughout the planting area on the side yard of the property. But other than that, the planted buffer looked good. So
As long as-
staff would recommend release though. Sorry?
So moved. So moved. Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Can I just ask real quick, what's the wood chip piles? Normally wood chips aren't a big concern, but why are they piled there?
They seem to be defining roughly the edge of a shrub bed along the western property line.
Do they pose any concern to you, Alexis?
No, I think they're within the upland review area, and they are within the planted buffer, but they are uphill by quite a ways and then divided between them and the closest wetland and water course is a stone wall. So I don't think that it's a significant concern.
Thank you.
Okay,
We'll just
that was,
let them know not to creep down closer to the wetland.
that was discussion. How about a vote? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No abstentions, so they get their $7,360 back. Did anybody review the minutes from October 25th?
I did.
Nice.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second. Discussion? Vote, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
None opposed, no abstentions. Awesome. Well, we have 17 minutes. We can keep going with the agenda if that's okay. Annual meeting schedule. Alexis.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I know I put this on the agenda, but I don't know if it made it to my list of documents that I attached in the various emails I sent to you. Let me share my screen. So Freedom of Information Act requires that public commissions post their dates of regular meetings, and that this be filed with the city clerk's office in advance of January 1st. So typically, as you know, the second and fourth Tuesday of every month you meet. There are so there's kind of an unofficial unspoken rule that major holidays, major religious holidays, including Jewish holidays, that do not hold a meeting. Often you end up not having, you have only one meeting in September and October due to Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, but that does not happen this year. Often you have one meeting in August, since a lot of you are on vacation and we have trouble getting a quorum. So I wanted to point out that on April 11th it will be Passover. It's also spring break week for Norwalk Public Schools. So I would recommend not holding a meeting on your April 11th typical day. And then likewise, December 12th is one of the nights of Hanukkah. And it would be recommended that you not have a meeting on December 12th. That would mean, though, that you don't have a meeting in December. And then likewise, I didn't know if you wanted to talk about July or August, or have any thoughts on reducing your number of meetings in those months. So.
Is there a minimum number of meetings that we need to get in?
Sorry?
Good question.
A minimum number of meetings that we need to get in?
No, you don't have a minimum number.
Okay.
No, there's no statutory requirement for the frequency of your meeting. So all the statutory timelines for once an application is submitted and received will stay the same. But for example, a lot of inland wetland commissions, most inland wetland commissions meet once a month as opposed to twice a month. So you've already built in a good cushion.
Well, I'm okay with scratching April 11th and December 12th.
I generally agree with that, but if we scratch December 12th one, could that leave us in a bind at some point? I mean, you got November 28th, and we don't have another meeting for another 30 some odd days, right?
Right, so you could look into having a meeting on the 3rd. So let me get rid of April 11th. And then you could have, grab the calendar. You could potentially have a meeting on the December 19th.
Sure.
Does that make sense? I don't want to ruin everybody's Christmas or holiday or December. I just don't want
No, that sounds fine to me. So we
Good
can
thinking.
do it on and off. I know that it's usually the second Tuesday and
Yes, you can do it on and off. So I wouldn't recommend doing it like 1 week after November 28th, because then there's not 14 days between the meetings, but having a meeting on the 3rd Tuesday of the month works fine as far as application deadlines and statutory waiting periods.
I would vote for not having a meeting on August 22nd. That seems like a tough time. A lot of people are away at the very, very end of August too.
Yeah, I mean, that's why why you have traditionally not had that meeting, because it is hard to get a quorum.
Yeah.
Cool.
Consensus? Okay. Sounds good.
Thanks.
Looks good.
So I'll send that out to all of you, as well to the city clerk.
Thanks, Alexis. Moving on to conservation initiatives. Does anybody have anything happening or any ideas?
I am applying again, not necessarily a conservation initiative, but I think I'd mentioned previously that I've applied for funding sources to do a flood resiliency plan focusing on coastal, riverine, and tidal flooding throughout the city. And I'm applying for yet another grant to fund such a plan to increase resiliency. If no one else has anything else, if I could ask that you consider adding a item to the agenda?
No. Yeah, go for it.
It would be under the category of assessment of permit need, I think. It is for a 1995 permit, number S95-562. And I'd like to add it to the agenda to discuss one of the conditions of that agency approved permit and whether you would be okay with a staff modification of that condition.
Lay it on us.
So permit number S95-562 resulted in the construction of the house that's now at 8 Leslie Lane. Back in the 90s, there was specifically in 1995 and 1996, the commission at the time required as one of its approval conditions that the driveway shall remain gravel. And I thought that I had found all of these permits a few years ago. I think the commission dealt with a handful of them. I don't know. I think it was before, I don't know, maybe Ed remembers this. It was a while ago. They've come up over the years. And since 1995, the city has developed much more robust stormwater drainage plans that require stormwater runoff retention for any increased impervious surface and other safeguards. The property at 8 Leslie Lane would like to pave their driveway. The driveway bisects a wetland, and the previous owner had brought in an extraordinary amount of gravel every 3 years to place on the driveway, and that's resulted in kind of the driveway widening over the years. The new owner would like to stop adding gravel and pave it. So my question for you is, are you comfortable with a staff administrative striking of special condition K of this permit?
Just had this property in front of us, right?
We did. It's a new owner. So the previous owner had a corrective action permit following an enforcement action for clearing the front wetland of vegetation. That was completed. New owner purchased it, and new owner requested to fix the fill slope. In the front yard, there's a large wetland, and then there is fill, and then the house. And he requested that the slope of that fill be cleaned up with a retaining wall because it was kind of eroding. So this is kind of a similar thing that the current owner is looking at, trying to define the limits of development versus the kind of more wild and natural areas.
And what you're saying is that they would be required to get a stormwater permit as well, and the runoff would be taken care of through stormwater structures, correct?
Yeah, so potentially they through the city stormwater guidelines, which are administered through the Public Works Department, they would have to at a minimum do an engineering analysis to look at the change in runoff once you change the runoff coefficients from compacted gravel to asphalt. It's not going to be a lot, and depending on what that difference is, if it's enough of a difference in increase of runoff, they'd have to install some sort of retention or detention somewhere. I suspect that they won't have to because it is such a compacted gravel area. It doesn't really have, it's not doing a lot as far as letting water infiltrate.
But
Just
you
because-
also think that gravel is ending up in the wetland because it's not,
Yeah,
stabilized.
definitely. It just kind of laterally spreads over the years. And so I don't have it in front of me, but they would be removing quite a bit of the gravel from the existing gravel driveway area. It's a long driveway access, and then it ends in a courtyard, surrounded on all sides by wetlands. So
I mean, are we worried about like more gravel falling away from the driveway as the work is done and whatnot?
yeah, so I'd have them doing it to do the driveway. You can certainly do a minor permit and install sedimentation erosion controls on either side while they're ripping up the existing gravel and installing the bituminous. Definitely.
So there's that, and then there's the analysis of switching the runoff calculation from packed gravel to pavement, which is, in your estimation, not going to result in much.
Correct.
Thoughts, anybody?
So the alternative would be that the homeowner would file a full permit modification application before you, and you would discuss the merits of gravel versus asphalt, or that I would just remove that condition and they would proceed with paving of their driveway with some oversight.
Seems fine to me.
I'd agree.
Anybody else?
Good with me.
That seems reasonable.
Ed's nodding. Okay,
Sounds good.
cool. Let's, for the next 3 minutes, I'm gonna grab some water if that's okay. Maybe just take a little break until the public hearing.
Okay, I won't, since it's just 3 minutes, I won't pause the recording or anything. I'll just leave screens on and we'll return.
Sounds good. Thanks. Okay, it's 7 o'clock, but where is everybody?
Looks like the applicant's here and you've got potentially 4 attendees to speak maybe.
Still waiting for Mr. Pence, and there he is. Wonderful. Okay. It is 7:01. We are opening a public hearing on application S22-609, 556, 558 Westport Avenue, and 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and 14 Renzulli Road. Coastal Luxury Homes is proposing demolition of existing and construction of new mixed-used multifamily development with associated stormwater management and landscaping in and adjacent to a wetland and watercourse.
Typo on the
So-
agenda, it should be use, not used.
Yeah, that didn't really roll, did it? Alexis, can you give us the lay of the land for public hearings, please?
Sure. So whenever the agency is reviewing an application, they always look at the submitted paper materials, any verbal testimony from the applicant, and the wisdom of staff. When there's a public hearing, the public is invited to give the agency any additional information that you may know about the site or the conditions, and then the agency can put that into their host of things that they consider when they make their decision. So the goal of the public hearing is for you, the public, to provide information to the applicant. The process is the applicant will first do a presentation and review all of the components of the proposed activity. Once that presentation is done, the chair will open it to public comment. You will have one chance for public comment. It is not a back and forth conversation, and the applicant is encouraged but not required to answer any questions that you may pose to them. So we'll do the presentation, and then if you do want to speak, when we get to that point, I'll ask you to use the raise your hand function in Zoom, and we will allow you to speak. When you do speak, just be sure to clearly state your name and your address and the comments that you have regarding the application. Thanks.
Okay.
And then I will add that public hearings have to be noticed, so they are legally noticed in the newspaper, and my office did send a legal notice to the Hour, and that notice was published last Thursday and the preceding Thursday. And then additionally, the applicant is required to send certificate of mailing to all abutting and adjacent, abutting and across the street property owners from the project, and proof of that mailing has been received by my office. So that is the notice.
And now we usually give the chance for the applicant to present their documents, and then the public is to make their comments after that, right?
Correct.
So applicant, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. My name is Craig Flaherty. I'm a senior engineer and principal with Redness and Mead, with offices in Stamford and Wilton. We are here representing the applicant, Coastal Luxury Homes, whose principal is Joe Feinlieb. On this project, Redness and Mead has provided land surveying, site civil engineering, and planning and zoning consulting services. I'm joined here tonight by my colleague and professional engineer, Vincent Hines, as well as Bill Kenny of William Kenny and Associates, who is the project soil scientist, wetland scientist, and landscape architect. And he's provided the mitigation plans, planting plans, functional assessment, and review of the wetlands. So you'll be hearing from both me and Bill Tonight, I'm going to give you an orientation as to the location of the site, the existing conditions, what the proposal is, some of our stormwater features, and then I'll turn it over to Bill to talk more specifically about the wetlands, values, and functions, and how we're enhancing those and mitigating any effects of the proposed development. So now the time to share my screen. All right. This out of the way. Okay. So the site is highlighted in yellow. This is the boundary right here. You will see a red dashed line running north-south through the exhibit. That is the town line with Westport. So everything here on the right or east side of that red line is in Westport. Everything on the left or west side of that line is in Norwalk. You can see we have no proposed work in Westport. However, given that the property is within 500 feet of another municipality, that municipality was given notice of the application. And specific to your purview, the Wetlands Agency for the town of Westport did provide a memo and comments to Alexis, and we responded to those comments in an earlier document. All of that is on and in your record for the application. So orientation, you've got Route 1, Westport Avenue, running near the top of the sheet, left to right. To the left or west of the project site is the movie theater site with the Bed Bath & Beyond and the Fitness Edge and a few other stores. And the surface parking associated with that. And this in the back here is their parking garage. This is little solar panels on the roof of the parking garage. I think this is the McDonald's right there. Running east or right of the site in Westport, you've got the Whole Foods with a few other ancillary stores. Over here on the east, there's another strip mall here. There's a Bank of America right there. Across Route 1 is the old Pepperidge Farm site, much of which now has been turned into apartment buildings, similar to the proposal you have before you tonight. And then Renzulli Road is now incorporated into the west side of the subject parcel and continues on down to Kings Highway in Westport. We work very closely with the Renzulli Road Association on the proposed site plan, and making sure that the efforts that we were taking both on this site and with the cul-de-sac and on the landscaping was something that they supported and hopefully are looking forward to. So this is an amalgamation of actually 8 different properties plus a bit of right-of-way. This is the property and topographic survey that's in your record. So the Westport Ave properties are commercial in nature, and up here fronting Westport Ave, a dry cleaner right there, an old, I think it was a wine retail store or something like that in this corner. And then coming down, we've got 14, 12, 10, 8, 6, and 4 Renzulli Road. There's a couple of commercial and mixed uses, but most of those are residences with very, very long backyards. And way back in the east section of those backyards is the regulated area, the wetland. And within that wetland, there are 2 intermittent watercourses that flow into one another and become one intermittent watercourse. I'll show you this a little better on the landscape plan, and I'll zoom into it. So maybe that's okay. So this is what we're here to talk about. The wetland, I think, and Bill will get into this a little bit more when he does a deep dive on it, has been unfortunately kind of an overlooked back door to a lot of properties. Just north of it is that strip mall, and this is really the loading area behind that strip mall. There seems to be some evidence of debris accumulating over time, and there's certainly some invasives in the north section of that. There's a pipe that comes in from that property, a 30-inch RCP that outlets at the header of this intermittent watercourse that's on the west side of the wetland. And then this property over here is the Whole Foods I talked about. Also, it's kind of the backdoor loading area of Whole Foods. And there's another 30-inch pipe that comes in the east side here that forms the header of this intermittent watercourse. Those two watercourses end up joining into a single watercourse that then exits the site down here, where it again is piped at its discharge. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. But coming from the north, this is about a 20-acre watershed. Coming from the east, it's about a 30-acre watershed. And there's also a stormwater drainage easement and discharge coming from this residential subdivision of Rivard Crescent over here to the south. So we have a 15-inch pipe, a 30-inch pipe, a 30-inch pipe, all feeding into an 18-inch pipe. And you don't have to be an engineer to do the math on that. So there is also downstream flooding that occurs as this wetland fills up and overflows across the properties to the south. And I'll just show you, this is the overall drainage basin map that shows you how far north we're collecting water from in this wetland. This is the Whole Foods, this is across, this is Terra Nova Circle and Hills Lane, and even north of Hills Lane all the way up to Orchard Hill Court. That's that pipe that comes in the east side. And then the one that comes in the north side is that little strip mall, the bank, and then most of Pepperidge Farm, which comes down through that pipe on the north side. And this is that offsite basin I was talking about associated with Rivard Crescent that comes in there as well. So most of the water from the existing site doesn't actually get into that rear wetland. There's a ridge line that kind of cuts through the backyards that exist today versus, it counts the water getting to that wetland versus the water that basically comes down Renzulli Road and gets into a water course that then heads south and west away from the site. So basically, as we're looking at these plans, water comes in, is exposed in the wetland, is then piped between these two houses, and then comes out in another water course, and then continues on to the south and west as it heads eventually to Long Island Sound in Birds Cove, west side of the Westport Harbor. And there really is limited stormwater renovation or infrastructure under existing conditions, and we've got about 2 acres of hardscape or impervious coverage under existing conditions today. So in general, things are ripe for improvement, adding retrofitted stormwater mitigation, which we are doing as a part of the proposed development, and looking at ways to clean up some of the invasives and debris that's in the existing wetland, and attempting to enhance it with vegetation and keep enhance and keep established buffers surrounding the wetland. But the proposal, which is captured in this building, is a 4-story apartment building with 136 units. There's a little retail that faces the north side towards Westport Avenue. Surface parking is about as far away from the wetlands as we could get it. And even better, we've got 3/4 of the parking required for the project in below grade garages. That's good because we don't have rain falling on those parking surfaces, and any drains that might end up in the garage levels have to be plumbed to the sanitary sewer system and will never get to surface. So that is a win. And then we have the roof areas, which are hardscape. This is a pool terrace in the back and a playground in the interstitial space here. In many of the plans, you will see highlighted some of the stormwater features that we are proposing. Under what is now the proposed dog run next to the play area, the fenced in space to allow pets to roam, there is a significant infiltration system, 240 linear feet of 4-foot tall gallery. In the back here, between the cul-de-sac and that will serve Renzulli Road and the building. There's another 200 feet of 4-foot tall infiltration galleries. And then we have 5-foot tall infiltration galleries under the filled terrace surrounding the pool. And so all of those devices, along with more traditional things like catch basin sumps with hooded outlets and oil grit separators and the like, we're able to reduce the peak rate of runoff between existing and proposed conditions. And we are also able to provide, at least in these 100% of the water quality volume for the areas tributary to those 3 systems that I highlighted. There's some areas that are just too low and a little downhill of those systems, but for those areas we have included an oil grit separator, so we're treating water quality flow, if not water quality volume, on 97% of the coverage. So everything that you're looking at, including that roof, will end up in a piped system that comes down Renzulli Road and connects into the existing pipe that comes across the road and discharges in that water course. We have discussed in the past, but I'll mention again, we are working on a second separate application, which will come before you soon, to help reduce some of the flooding conditions that are experienced downstream. So our proposal is going to be to put a twin 18-inch pipe as the outlet to this this water course system to better manage the flows that are coming in without overland flooding. And we're also going to clean up the downstream water course, and there's evidence of significant sediment buildup and debris within the water course, which just hasn't been maintained. Trees have fallen down, those trees have blocked flow. That blocked flow has created some sediment barring. Anyway, that's not a matter for this particular application, but I wanted to mention it since you'll be seeing that one again shortly. And then you can see on the landscape plan the areas of vegetation. We have talked in the past about walking trails that we're trying to develop on the site, including a boardwalk through the wetland, which is indicated by this hatched line work right here. I have some alternatives, which I'll discuss with you after Bill does his presentation. But in our mind, we think that this boardwalk is actually an asset to the wetland. Not only does it allow for passive enjoyment of the resource after we put all this money and work into trying to improve it, but it puts kind of supervisory eyes on the ground to observe conditions in that wetland and report those conditions when things don't look right. In particular, this water course that comes from the east or the back of Whole Foods, at least by our inspection, has some impacts and poor water quality associated with it. It would be nice to have people be able to observe those conditions so they could be corrected when they occurred. We, of course, have submitted a sediment erosion control plan that aims to reduce temporary impacts during construction from the disturbed earth that will be created as this gets built. And that's in your record. I think with that, maybe I'll turn it over to Bill to do a little more of a deep dive on the wetland and what he found out there and whatever else he wants to say. So, Bill.
Thanks, Craig. Good evening. I'm Bill Kenny. I'm the principal of William Kenny Associates in Fairfield, Connecticut. I'm a professional wetland scientist, soil scientist, and landscape architect. Our firm was retained to help in a number of different ways. One, we started working on the project this past February by visiting the site and studying the soils and determining the boundaries of the wetlands. So we completed a wetland delineation. And then since then, we've been working with the design team to help develop a site development plan that could be completed in such a way that we could avoid adversely affecting the wetland and also to do some enhancements to help improve this wetland. So to that end, we studied the wetland and looked at inventoried the existing conditions and assessed those conditions and then developed a habitat enhancement plan, which you're looking at before you right now. We also developed a landscape plan for the overall project, which Craig showed you earlier. That plan right there. So what I propose is I'll focus then, since Craig has covered the overall project and a lot of the site design for the overall project, I'll focus on the wetland area itself and speak, provide you a little bit more detail on the existing conditions for the wetland and the proposed enhancements that we've developed. And this this drawing includes a site plan for the enhancements up in the top left-hand corner of the drawing. In the right-hand side, we have some specifications for the enhancements that are proposed. One detail on this drawing, but there we do have another detail sheet with within our package that has other tree and shrub planting details, which are primarily related to the rest of the site. And then we do have a detail sheet that shows the construction of the proposed boardwalk. And on the other plan, lastly, we had a plant list for the proposed planting in and immediately adjacent to the wetland. And this list,
Sorry,
there you go, Craig.
I'm jumping around a little too much.
Yep, that's right. So the wetland is an isolated feature, an isolated natural resource surrounded primarily by development. It's gently sloping from the northeast to the southwest. It's a woodland wetland. It probably was bigger historically, and when development occurred to the north and to the east, it was portions of the wetland were lost. And so its water source is mostly there's groundwater discharge and surface water discharge. What we found that the water course to the north has more of a groundwater influence, and the water course to the east had more of a stormwater influence. When we were on site, we did this summer, even with drought conditions, we were finding water in that northern water course in between storm events, and where the eastern or southern water course was dry. And it did seem to have more, the eastern southern water course had the more trash and debris associated with it. It seemed like there was a good load of pollutants or debris entering the wetland from that water course versus the other. Along the perimeter of the wetland, there's been a lot of pressure over time and beyond the developments that surround us, but there's fill and debris, as you would expect in an area like this, that borders the wetland on the west there, on the north. There's been management of the wetland over time on some of these lots. As Craig noted, there's these long, thin lots that extend west to east, and the northernmost lot, it appears that perhaps many, many years ago, trees were removed from the wetland in the buffer and the wetland. And what that led to was increased sunlight, and the amount of invasive species in that northern portion of the wetland is much greater than it is in other parts of the wetland. Particularly Japanese knotweed is quite prevalent in that area. So we've focused some of our habitat enhancement activities in that area to control the knotweed, plant more trees in that area to help over time bring back more shade, and the shade will help to control the growth of the invasive plants with particularly knotweed, which prefers or does not like to grow in shade. So the objective would be to control that in the short term with cutting and very targeted herbicide use in accordance with state laws, and then in the long term plant more trees in that area and get the woodland established again. In the remainder of the wetland, there's a common native wetland plants and common invasive plants that you expect to see in this part of Fairfield County. So you have privet, burning bush, and multiflora rose, in those invasive shrubs growing in the shrub layer. Most of the trees are native trees. There's some Norway maples that are located around the perimeter of the wetland. But in the southern portion of the wetland, what we're going to focus our efforts on are vines. There's invasive vines that are hurting, stressing the trees that are there, and we don't want to have those trees die and then have more sunlight in the wetland and more invasive plants like what has happened in the northern portion of the wetland. So in the central and southern portions of the wetland, we're proposing to focus our efforts on controlling those vines and cutting them so that they're not smothering the trees, smothering, killing, and stressing those trees. And another part of the enhancement activities is to remove fill, landscape debris and fill primarily along the northern and western portions of the wetland, and then reestablish those areas with native vegetation, meadow vegetation, and native trees. Then the boundary of the buffer, the vegetative buffer that we're establishing, we're proposing to put up markers, signage to inform the residents that this is a wetland and buffer area and a conservation area that should be protected. So it'll be along that line that Craig is showing. Lastly, there is the boardwalk that Craig described that's proposed, and there's a couple. Craig discussed that a little bit, and I'd like to add some additional information. We're proposing a prefabricated structure, and the detail that we looked at earlier, it's a tubular steel structure, prefabricated, has adjustable legs that sit on these plates, these steel plates that are only about a foot square. And this really is quite beneficial during construction and after construction to minimize effects to the wetland substantially. There's no digging to these plates, these base plates for the legs just sit right on the surface of the wetland, and the legs are adjustable. You adjust them in the field. So there's no digging needed. You put down these legs and adjust them, and the structure, then you can level the structure very easily in the field. And you place one section at a time, and you start at the edge of the wetland and you work your way out. And that way you could put the structure in the substructure, add the decking, and as you move into the wetland, you can work from that decking surface and minimize substantially the amount of foot traffic in the wetland itself. So there's quite a bit of investment to put in a structure like this, but it has tremendous benefits in minimizing any effects to the wetland. When you add up all the plates for the legs that we're proposing, it's less than 100 square feet of area that these plates will be covering. So very low impact. And as Craig indicated, the opportunities for educating the public, making the public more aware of the wetland habitat certainly would add some educational signage. And as that awareness grows, their appreciation for the area grows. So there'll certainly be people there looking out. And if someone, whether it be someone nearby or another resident, is doing something improper, there'll be a self-policing occurring with the residents. I'm certain of that.
And you mentioned a recent project where some significant length got approved for a wetland. I forgot.
Yeah, that's right. In New Canaan last month, we had this same product, and the agency approved about 400 feet of a boardwalk through a wetland using this product. So they were quite interested in the product and its benefits.
Yeah.
So, and then with regard to the proposed development and its potential effects to the wetland, we took a close look at that. And I think the big take-home message, which is related to most of what Craig described, is the stormwater management. Nothing other than the boardwalk is proposed within the wetland itself. And the vast majority of the other development activities are in a different watershed from this wetland. There is no formal stormwater management today and a fair amount of impervious surface on site. So with all of the proposed improvements in stormwater management for both quality and quantity, we do believe that the project will not adversely affect the on-site wetland or any other wetlands or watercourses downstream from the site, because we're taking a partially developed site and with no stormwater management and adding a stormwater management system that complies with all the current standards. And then also doing the wetland enhancement activities that we described. So it's our professional opinion that the project is not likely to adversely affect wetlands or watercourses on or off the property.
Thank you, Bill. So I'm going to talk about a couple of alternatives that have been submitted for the record. But just before I do that, not that it's particularly germane to your area of jurisdiction, but everybody is curious. We have a couple of early renderings. This is the Route 1 rendering where the building appears as 3 stories because it's higher up on the hill with some retail at ground level, parking area in front. And then this is a digital rendering of the west side, the side that faces the Bed Bath & Beyond and movie theater site, just to give you an indication of the architectural style. And a lot of the outside that you're looking at is wood and wood composite, and it shows up a little cold in the rendering, but it's actually a warmer material. But let me grab another drawing here. Hopefully pops right in. So these are the 3 windows that indicate some of the alternatives we've been discussing. The first alternate A is has to do with the corner of the building, far southeast corner of the building. So let me go back to the site plan for a second. Show you where that is. So this corner, actually it'd be better on a black and white site plan. Okay, there we go. So this corner of the building is the only piece of the building that presses into the 50-foot upland review area indicated by this line I'm tracking right now. And so this bit extends, 8 or 9 feet into that setback, upland review area. So this alternate looks at an option to cut that corner out. We address this in the wetland assessment. Basically, we don't see any difference in the temporary or permanent disturbance between keeping the building out or having the building in that little bit of the buffer. It's certainly something that is achievable. It's feasible to do that. We'd prefer not to. It affects 5 levels of the building, gets rid of parking space, changes the layout of all these end units, and kind of changes the pacing of the architecture around the site. So it's kind of very geometric and symmetric. Not to say that this couldn't be done. We just didn't see the merit of doing it, given the lack of impact either way to the wetland, whether this building was squared off or not. So that's alternate 1, indicated on our exhibit of alternates for your consideration in your deliberations. The other alternates, there was some concern voiced about whether to allow the boardwalk and invite that activity into a wetland. Again, you kind of heard us. We strongly feel it's an asset and important to kind of the long-term maintenance of the wetland. I think the reason the wetland has so many impacts today is because it's really a backdoor, and we very specifically don't want it to be a backdoor in the future. So we want to make it a part of the walking trail and get eyes right into the middle of it. And you heard that this is the water course where we're more likely to see impacts. So that affects this alternate C, which was the idea of, instead of having the boardwalk extend into the middle of the wetland, that it would be placed along the edge of the wetland. Honestly, the professionals and the applicant would prefer the no boardwalk route over the kind of compromise boardwalk route, because we don't think this accomplishes either the good or bad, right? It doesn't get the eyes into the wetlands where we need them, and nor does it get the people to enjoy the passive resource in that way. So if you were inclined to condition your approval on a change and alternate for the boardwalk, we would prefer no boardwalk over half boardwalk. But again, the application as submitted is the one we stand by, the one addressed in our assessments and report, and the one we think is the best overall solution. That is the completion of our presentation. Happy to take questions from commissioners or go to the public.
I got a question. Is there any wildlife in the wetlands back there?
Yes, certainly. Yep. There's not a vernal pool or any critical habitat or higher significant habitat. It's pretty common suburban wildlife you'd expect to see using that area. Most of the wildlife is, well, it's going to be the mammals that you're expected to see in the bird life, but no significant amphibians or reptiles. There's certainly some there, but not some that are obligate for vernal pool habitat or something like that.
Typical suburban fauna.
Yes.
There's nothing shown on the National Diversity Database. Or anything like that that you're aware of?
Did you get that, Bill?
Oh, was there another question? I didn't hear.
Yeah, you froze for a second there.
Just
Oh, sorry.
confirming that there's nothing on the Natural Diversity Database indicated in this area.
That's good. I don't recall if we checked that. I could check it right now while we're working here.
Sounds good.
Okay, there's doesn't seem to be any additional commissioner questions. Do we want to open it up to the public? You're muted, Alexis.
Whew, I almost got through the meeting without being muted and talking. Okay, so I'll just give my public hearing spiel real quickly. The commission would love to hear from the public. They would use any information that you give them to better inform their decisions. So that's the goal of the public comment. It's not a back and forth conversation with the applicant. The applicant is not obliged, though they are encouraged to answer any questions that you may have. And the process is that we'll ask you to use the raise your hand feature if you'd like to speak. And then we will call you in the order that you've raised your hand. Once you have spoken once, we will not return to you again. So it's a kind of a state your piece, and then we move on to the next speaker. So if anyone is interested in speaking, use the raise your hand feature. And I'm sure there's no one calling in. Well, if you are calling in and I can't see you, you can use *9 to effectively raise your hand. We're all chomping at the bit. Oh, we have one. And so again, I'm going to allow you to speak. Just clearly state your name and your address. You should be able to speak.
Sure. My name's Chao Lu. I live on 10 Reward Crescent, as you can see from the map. Right? My question is related to the fence. You know, in the information provided by the town, they were saying around 8 feet tall fence, you know, surround the development. I trying to understand how that is can be presented on the map, you know, the blueprint, you know. And also, you know, the next question, just trying to explain a little bit more, you know, in the south part of the wetland, you know, between the, you know, the development and also the few neighbors, you know, in Railroad Crescent or maybe, you know, toward to Ranzoni Road. Yeah, that's my question. Thank you.
I'm happy
Anyone
to go
else?
now or wait until you're done.
Yeah, sure. If you want to answer it now, maybe, and then we'll, anyone else that wants to ask a question, you can just use that raise your hand feature.
So I've zoomed in to the landscape plan. It gets a little grainy, but here is Mr. Liu's property. So we have a shared property boundary from here to here. And you can see, and maybe I'll highlight it. We're proposing a fence, a 6 foot tall opaque wood fence. It'll be partially here and then a break at the water course. And then it picks up between the plantings over here. So that's the location of the fence. Not much proposed on Mr. Liu's property boundary at this point, and it's 6 feet tall.
And Chairman, I don't see any other hands raised.
I do recognize most of those names are folks that are part of the association, and I'm guessing are just watching along.
Okay.
Okay, so I mean, the thing about public hearing is that this is the last chance for us to gather information from the applicant. So that includes commissioners. So does anybody need to see anything else? I guess I'll ask a question. Do we have anything other than what you showed us today as far as your alternate strategies go let me rephrase that. Is the removal of the boardwalk in the wetland part of the application documents right now or not?
It is not. So that's why we specifically put it on an alternate exhibit. That's not part of the application. That would only be something that occurred by a modified approval on your part.
Got it. Okay.
Just while I'm got your attention, also I do want to note our timing. Unfortunately, the calendar is getting away with us, just as you observed, and when you were setting up your schedule for this year. We're hoping to have the public hearing with planning and zoning on December 8th. They, of course, want you guys to decide before they decide, because that's state law. But you don't meet before December 8th, you meet on December 13th. So I see on the agenda possible discussion and decision, should you be so inclined. I would just ask that if you were at all able to, you reach that decision tonight. Just kind of keeps us on track without losing a whole 5 or 6 weeks, pushing us into January. And then Bill, I think, did look up the NDDB while we were talking. Bill, do you want to share it quickly, or just say there's nothing there?
That is correct. There is nothing Nothing there. According to the state records, there's no critical habitat or the presence of any listed species. I could share the map if you'd like, if you want to see that.
Sounds like it's unnecessary. We'll take your word for it, Bill. Yeah. As the professional.
So can I surmise that the boardwalk in the wetland is, if we do have any hangups on the application, is that what it is, commissioners? Does anybody have any other concerns that you'd like to hear the applicant address?
Can I just a word about applications in general? I want to clarify, mostly for the audience, that the applicant had brought up a looming second application for work to the south of this parcel, and I just want to make clear that the wetland agency, no matter what it decides on the current pending application, cannot compel the applicant to make an additional second application. And if the applicant does make a second application, there's no guarantee that such application would be granted. So I just want to manage expectations and clarify that. And then commission, going back to kind of the timelines, obviously the applicant is eager to move things along. You are not obligated to make a decision tonight. You do have 65 days from the close of the public hearing to make a decision on any application. So you can do what you want.
Okay,
I
Thanks,
just had to ask nicely.
never hurts to ask, especially when it's nicely. Okay, all right. Well, I mean, if there's no further questions to ask or information to be gleaned or cases to be made, I guess I think we probably need a motion to close the public hearing, Alexis,
Sure,
or not?
that'd be great. I'd love one.
Ed
I'll
is
make a
waving his
motion.
microphone. Okay, Cheryl moved. Do a
Sorry.
second?
It's got
Ed
it.
seconds. Okay. Any discussion? Shall we vote? All in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. And that's that, I guess. So everybody is still obviously going to be sticking around for the next part of the agenda, but that is the end of the public hearing.
Correct. So no more from the applicant's team.
All right, so then moving on to discussion and or decision of the same property, S22-609. So I'm curious to hear the thoughts of other commissioners.
I think it's a well thought out plan. I appreciate that they're, dealing with the invasive species. I have no problem with the boardwalk. I think the boardwalk is an asset to what they're doing.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the overall plan is sound. I am hung up on the boardwalk. Just letting you know, I've been thinking about it. I'm just on the fence right now.
Ed, you shine some of your wisdom on this one?
Personally, I would shorten the building and go with the boardwalk myself, but that doesn't seem to be an option here.
Well, I mean, anything's an option. Well, all we would do is reject the application and make them redo it. Or ask them to edit it, alter it.
That's true. I don't like the fact there's like no upland review area here. We're just going from wetlands directly into a building. So, I mean, personally, I think the building should be shortened. But on the issue of the boardwalk, I'm kind of okay with it because it does give an opportunity for the public to realize one of our natural assets back there. So that's kind of my feeling.
Okay.
And so I just want to make sure, Ed, for shortening the building, you're not talking about, just going to pull up the plan.
They basically just took a little notch out of it so that it,
Yeah, I'm thinking of like a really big notch. You
Okay.
know?
So more than, hold on, we'll pull up the landscape plan. It's loading.
and it's not just the wetland upland review either. It's the water course, which is even, 50 feet deeper into the building, right?
Right.
I mean, so what is happening in order to push the building back that far? Are we, what is the extent of tree removal? What is the extent of grading? What is the extent of potential runoff? I'm asking, not, I don't know the answers to these questions, but that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, so I mean, right now, this is the silt fence and limit of disturbance, this kind of gray dashed line. And then the wetland line is this red line with the W's in it. And so that 50-foot upland review area is here. And then again, that 100 is, further up here.
Sorry, are we, I mean, what is it necessarily about it, Ed? Are you concerned about water? Are you concerned about traffic?
I'm mostly concerned about really keeping the 50-foot upland review area as a review area and not encroaching on it. I mean, basically, you're going from a 50-foot area to a 4-foot wall. It just seems a little excessive. I mean, if anything, I would go for alternate A, where we have the notch in the building. But realistically, I would feel better if the building was set back, farther than that.
Okay. What do we
To allow more of a buffer, a native buffer.
Yeah, that is correct.
Alexis, what do we have on file from the applicant as far as the wetland analysis and impacts and whatnot? I know that's a very open-ended question, but I mean, when do we run into a problem with saying that there's more impact than the professionals think there's going to be and not having our own professional to back that up?
Yeah, I think you get into I think that you would need to really read through the wetland assessment report, but as you stated, you have one professional expert opinion that speaks about there are some potential impacts to the wetland and water, wetland and water course. But the applicant is proposing a suite of mitigation. And
Okay.
I guess I would encourage you to carefully read, this is page 4 of the wetland assessment report, going into 5 through the end of the document, page 8, goes over all the potential short-term indirect impacts and how they propose to avoid those, and then it talks about all of the positive impacts that mitigation could bring.
Okay. All right, so it sounds like a couple of us are on the fence for a couple different reasons. Do we have, can everybody here, if we wanted to vote on it tonight, Alexis, is everybody here able to? I mean, there's no reason we couldn't,
yep.
right?
There is not a reason that you couldn't. No.
All right, is anybody interested in doing a little more homework or thinking or whatever and pushing this to the next meeting in December for a decision or more discussion?
I want to hold them up, but I would appreciate an opportunity to think about this a little bit more, but that's only relative to the boardwalk, so.
Okay.
Can I ask how you feel, Steve, about the boardwalk?
I think I agree with everybody. I think it's a very well thought out application. I can see the benefits of the boardwalk, but I can see the drawbacks of it too. I also don't love how far the building is pushed into the upland review area, but I don't have any proof or, you know, clear reason to believe that it would have negative effects. I'm wary of going against, like I just said, a professional saying, well, I think what we just decided is that maybe all of us need to read pages 4 through 8 of the wetland report or the impact assessment more closely, and maybe that'll push us one way or another in our decision. But yeah, so I don't feel super strongly about it in either direction. Sorry. Not very helpful, probably. But the other thing is that, you know, we may have other commissioners attending the next meeting who, you know, hopefully will. I don't think we really heard much more tonight than we've heard in previous presentations. I mean, a little bit here and there, but it's essentially the same thing. So yeah, that may change the outcome, but it doesn't sound like anybody is anxious to make a motion, is what I'm gathering. So in that case, if no one is, I just think we got to keep it open until the next meeting, unfortunately, and see what we can shake out then. And it still gives the applicant, correct me if I'm wrong, Alexis, opportunity to alter the, no wait, can they alter it? No, they can't change it at this point. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Never mind. Sorry.
Right, so the application and all the other supporting materials, it is what it is, but you can, you frequently approve an application with special conditions and some limits. You can also approve with modifications if you feel that. It depends on the scale and scope of the modifications. So I would encourage, I know it's a lot of material, but all the relevant stuff is at the top of the web page at this point.
Okay.
Read through all of that and look at the alternatives, look at the reread the narratives, and determine if there is a particular concern, then do more research, or you can certainly reach out to me at any time to explain anything within the record. If you have any questions about what it's trying to say, if it's a technical term.
Okay.
Alexis, does the commission have, I guess, is there a history on in any of these boardwalk examples?
Yeah, there's one actually across the street on Westport Avenue that I had mentioned previously at the old Pepperidge Farm Factory site, which is now 595 Westport Ave apartments. If you drive, well, yeah, if you drive down Westport Avenue, don't look at this site because the public hearing is closed, but if you want, well, yes. I've never seen this low impact design that's been described. The design of the boardwalk sounds fantastic. Other boardwalks that have been approved in Norwalk in wetlands have involved kind of these helical pilings that they kind of drill down into the soil to attach the infrastructure, the boardwalk to. This is what's proposed is much less impactful with these kind of plates that are sitting, you know, on top of the soil. But yes, there are a handful of boardwalks in wetlands in Norwalk, so it's not unheard of to propose one within the wetland.
So we have been receptive to them historically. Have they ever been problematic?
No. Just thinking through. No, I mean, I think there's a fine line between just thinking through the ones that have been if there are any problems, it's places where there was extensive disruption to the wetland during construction. And these are kind of a long time ago. For the ones that were installed, you know, in the last 20 years, no, they're all good. Yeah, I can't really think of any issues
Okay.
other than the installation of them. But like I said, this one is definitely seems to be the lowest impact that I've seen.
So you've never seen any lead, other than construction, you've never seen any lead to any wetland violations or things that have just spiraled from there or damage?
No.
Okay,
No.
okay.
We're at a crossroads then. We can keep going, keep this open until next meeting, December 13th. Vote on it then, or not, or we have 65 days, so we could probably push it to January if we really wanted to. Or we could vote tonight, but if the vote doesn't pass, then this thing is dead in the water and we have to restart the process. Is that correct, Alexis?
Yes.
Okay. So I don't know. Matt, do you feel any different about the boardwalk?
I'd like to do a little bit more research. I don't. I appreciate Alexis's. Just in my head, I would like to think about it a little bit more. But again, I don't want to hold you guys up. But yeah, I think I don't see a reason to rush if I'm not sure about something or anyone else on the commission isn't sure about something. But that's how I feel.
No, I totally agree. So, okay.
And
All right.
I just want to clarify, there's no more research per se, but just reviewing the submitted materials in the record.
Fair enough. Thank you, Alexis. I got it.
Okay. All right. So I'm game for moving on with our agenda. We'll just leave S22-609 on the agenda for our next meeting.
Okay. And I had sent out late today, you know, a draft, a memorandum with a draft resolution. Look through that. And again, if you have any edits that you want to have incorporated into that, if that's the way that you're leaning, just let me know in advance of the 13th.
Awesome. Thanks, Alexis. Okay, well then, let's see. Going back to a regular scheduled programming. Comments of staff?
No comments at this hour.
I think you used yours up with that old 1995 thing. No, I'm
Agreed.
just joking. I'm just joking. No, you don't have any more? Okay. Comments of commissioners? Nope, I think everybody's toast. All right, could we have a, I will move to adjourn the meeting. Can I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, any discussion? If not, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, I'm gonna put a 4-year-old to bed. Good night.
Okay.
Good luck.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks.